Good afternoon. The Treasure Valley is mourning the loss of 2 Idaho National Guard soldiers. Thanks for joining us. I'm Natalie Hurst.
And I'm Brent Hunsaker. Today, we are learning more about the men who lost their lives in that deadly Apache helicopter crash last night. One of them on board was Chief Warrant Officer Steen Gearhart. He was 50 years old and from Meridian.
Also on board, Chief Warrant Officer John Hartway. He was 43 years old and from Kuna. Both men were assigned to the 1st of the 183rd Attack Reconnaissance Battalion. That's at Gowan Field. Tonight we have live team coverage with a look at these officers, their lives both in and out of uniforms, plus what's happening with this investigation.
And let's begin with that investigation. Eric Gonzalez has been tracking developments all day at the crash scene near Pleasant Valley Road. Eric?
Now, some of the people that I talked to out here, they say that they heard the crash last night. Say it sounded like a door slamming and then something being dragged down the driveway. Now, take a look behind me. You can see the crash site. It looks like investigators have shut down for the night. They were out here all day long trying to figure out what made this chopper go down. Witnesses say there was no explosion or fire from the crash.
Just a loud rumble and then like a big bang.
This horse ranch owner lives right next to the field where the helicopter came down.
I thought it was like a prison break or something.
Then word came in that it was worse than that.
10 p.m. this evening, an Idaho Army National Guard Apache helicopter with 2 crew members aboard crashed while on a training mission. We don't know the reasons why. We can't speculate at this point.
So far, there hasn't been much information as to why the helicopter went down, killing 2 pilots on board. The Idaho National Guard didn't say whether the Apache was coming or going away from Gowan Field. Colonel Marsano did say that the chopper was moving through the area but was not conducting any sort of training at the time. Military personnel immediately moved in and set up a command post and began the investigation. As investigators combed through the wreckage, hundreds of evidence markers dot the field. The National Guard did not say whether the helicopter was loaded with any type of armament.
It's very sad. I was hoping that they made it.
Now, I checked out the FAA's website, and tomorrow night they have a temporary flight restriction 20 miles south of Boise. Now, the website states that that is for rocket launches that will take place tomorrow night. I asked Colonel Marsano if he knew anything about that. He said he didn't know anything about those flight restrictions and didn't know if that was part of the investigation. But they do say that that is a common area where operations and exercises do take place. Back to you.
Erica, thanks for the update. Governor Otter offered his condolences to the families of these citizen soldiers, as well as those who worked with them shoulder to shoulder.
It reads in part, their loved ones and brothers and sisters in arms are in our thoughts and prayers. This tragedy reminds us of the enormous sacrifice and great risk involved in military service, whether here at home preparing to go into harm's way or on the battle lines of freedom. It goes on to say, I ask all Idahoans to join me in honoring these courageous citizen soldiers, along with all of those who have gone before them in defense of the liberties we hold so dear. We are learning more about Chief Warrant Officer John Hartway's aviation career here in the Treasure Valley. Hartway also flew for Air St. Luke's.
Demi Hawkins shed some light on his reputation and his flying experience. She continues our live team coverage.
Well, Brent, when Chief Warrant Officer John Hartway wasn't flying with the Idaho Army National Guard, he suited up in a different uniform as a pilot for Air St. Luke's. With such a broad reach, people might say that his loss will be felt not only by the armed forces, but the aviation community as a whole. This image of the wreckage is hard to forget. The lives lost in the crash will be remembered forever. But the questions are still unanswered.
It's a good helicopter. We're all very anxious as aviation professionals to find out what happened. The quality of training, the quality of the pilots that they operate with is the highest level. It is the highest level.
Steve Sandmeyer is the director of operations at Idaho Helicopters. He says several of the company's pilots fly or have flown for the National Guard. Chief Warrant Officer John Hartway was one of them. Sandmeyer says Hartway also flew for Air St. Luke's.
That kind of job is a very demanding job because those calls come at all times of days and nights, and it needs a person who has the ability to stay very alert and very professional at all times.
Sandmeyer says he only knew Hartway on a professional level, but says his service in the private sector speaks volumes about his character.
You know, he's flown hundreds of people, and if all you're able to do is affect one person's life in your life, you know, how do you put a value on that? But the fact that he was able to provide that benefit to many people just magnifies the loss, really.
A loss that will be felt beyond the gates at the Idaho Army National Guard.
It isn't just the loss for the armed services, but it will be a big loss for our community also in the ways that they serve our community.
I did confirm this afternoon that Hartway was employed by Turbo Air, that's an FAA charter operator here in Boise. The company says its employees are grieving today and that John was a valued employee who will be greatly missed. Back to you.
Jenny, thank you. As with the rest of Treasure Valley, people in the tight-knit community of Kuna, were shocked and saddened by the news of the crash today.
But as Scott Logan reports, when it was confirmed today, one of the two pilots living in Kuna really brought the hurt home.
People we talked to in Kuna were already sad when they learned two Valley men serving their nation and their state in the Idaho Army National Guard were killed in the line of duty. But when the military confirmed the identity of one of the pilots as Chief Warrant Officer John Hartway, a Kuna resident, it became more personal, even if they'd never known the soldier.
I have family in the military. My family's very military, actually, and that's really sad news. I mean, I didn't know him personally, but it's always heartbreaking. What about his family? You know, and Kuna's small, so lots of people know lots of people.
It's terrible. Yeah, it's a terrible thing. The first thing you think of is if it's somebody you know. I don't know this person, obviously, but it's a sad thing.
And the mayor of Kuna, himself a longtime guardsman, said the news is stunning and saddening.
It really hurts, and to have it from right here in town, we're very sorry about that and feel a great sense of loss for the family. And
Scott Logan, KBOI News, Kuna.
And stay with KBOI 2 News for any developments in the crash investigation. In between newscasts, you can find updates online at KBOI2.com. You can also get updates anytime by following us on Twitter and Facebook.